And want you to know that if you are interested in on-demand support for building and evaluating new ventures, if you're interested in innovation or solving social problems, we're here for you as a resource, and you can go to entrepreneurship.uark.edu to sign up for our mailing list and read about our programs. But I don't want to take any more time. I want to introduce my good friend, an amazing human, Flavia Araujo, who will be our speaker today. Flavia is a Walton College alum. She did her MBA. You finished in 2018, is that right?
Yeah, yep, 2018.
Yes. And she's now a senior account executive at Mitchell Communications, living the dream. Flavia, in her time at the University of Arkansas, was a tennis champion, all-star. And Flavia, I looked at all the many awards and accolades you received as a tennis star, and none of them make any sense to me as somebody who is a non-sports person. But if you Google her, you will read all about it. She also has professional experience at Nike and in a variety of leadership roles. And when she was doing the entrepreneurship program here, she was the chief marketing officer of a team named Lapivations. This was a medical device team. She had 2 business partners, and they won single-handedly more international business plan competitions than any graduate student team in the history of the University of Arkansas. More than that, they won more startup competitions than any graduate student team in the world in the history of this competition circuit. They won 28, 29, I lost count, I stopped counting, and more than $300,000 in prize money and investment for the company, which has now raised significant investment and is off to a running start. So Flavia, like I was saying to her privately before, nobody has lived the art of the pitch more than her. And so we invited her to come speak to all of you about what she learned along the way. And I'm sure this will be a dynamic session. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Flavia. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for the invite. This is incredible. I'm definitely embarrassed by this introduction. It was a long journey, and I'll expand a little bit about on all the stuff that we've been through with Lapivations and the competitions. But to the audience, thank you for taking time to join in. I hope everybody is safe and healthy back home. As Sarah said, my name is Flavia. I'm originally from Brazil. I went to Arkansas to play tennis for the Razorbacks, and I studied business management and marketing at the Walton College. And after that, I did my MBA at the Walton Graduate School of Business. I graduated in 2018, and I was very, very lucky to be among this incredible group. And as I decided to pursue entrepreneurship and innovation as my focus area, not because I had an idea or because I had a business that I want to get started. I chose that because after a long time exploring different areas, different subjects that I was interested outside of sports, I realized that the track of entrepreneurship was the one that was going to put me outside of my comfort zone the most. And I was intrigued by that. I always wanted to challenge myself. The whole experience involved presenting all of the time in
I always assume when someone freezes up, they're going to pop back in the minute I start to speak, but it didn't work. Let me text her to see if she can reboot real quick. Hang on, guys.
How's it going?
While we're waiting, if you all attending would want to say in the chat who you are and why you're here, and if you're working on a pitch, maybe describe what your pitch you're working on is. That'll be great context for her, but also interesting for you to see, I think.
Hello, hello. Can everybody see me and hear me? All right. I guess I'll get back to it. Let me share my screen really quick. I think I need hosting capabilities. All right. Are we back? Can you see my screen?
That's great.
All right, great. Apologies on that. So yeah, presenting all the time in a second language was something that was scary for me, but kind of got through it. I had no options. Selling an idea that I wasn't comfortable with or wasn't familiar with, it definitely scared me, and it concerned me that I wasn't going to have enough time to really get familiar with what I had ahead of me. And answering questions about technicalities, that was something that definitely definitely became a challenge later on, and we had to learn how to pivot, and we had to learn how to answer what the investors and the judges and the audience in general was looking for. But there was a ton about this experience that was very challenging, and that's why I decided to pursue it. And all that to say that that was the perfect scenario for me to fail over and over again. Happened a lot before all the successes, but it was extremely valuable at the same time. It was exactly what I needed in the personal and professional level. And later on, it wouldn't really matter if I was pitching an idea, telling a good story, or just in a job interview trying to introduce myself and how could I bring value to that employer. Some of those learnings were textbooks, some of those learnings that I'm going to share today were more experience based. And hopefully for the bit, hopefully that it's going to resonate with you in one way or another. But thankfully, looking back, those experiences really resulted in something amazing. This is what Lapovations is usually referred as or remembered for, a great success story. We did overcome a ton to put ourselves in those positions. We did lose quite a bit before. We're trying to find our story. We had to change so many ways that in how we would introduce the story and the narrative as a whole. I believe we created more than 400 different versions of a PowerPoint deck to introduce this. And I think I have all of them still as a reminder of the grind and how amazing it ended up at the end. But always surrounded by the best people, as you can see, some of them present here today: advisors, mentors, competitors, investors. We did end up having a record-breaking season and helped the program achieve some really great milestones that we were proud of. But what I do remember Lapovations for actually is the early mornings and the late nights. This photo on the left was after winning our first competition. We celebrated for a few minutes, had a few group hugs, and got back to the hotel, opened the computer, took notes. The next morning, it didn't matter how good we did, we knew we could do better. So we were right at it again at 4 a.m. The photo in the middle, we were always the ones to arrive first, sometimes the last ones to leave the building. It would always be quiet for us to get a feel of the room, the space, test the technology, rehearse, find a spot where we could relax as well. I needed to sometimes walk around and just breathe before we would go into the next meeting or the next pitch. So it was very important for us to have a good understanding of the place we were going to. I remember Lapovations as the many, many days, weekends, holidays where we got together to practice. Sometimes we practice against people who would be really, really harsh on us. Sometimes we practice against our own competitors because we knew that our competitors and our friends would make us better, and they were going to help us improve and address the toughest outcomes. And meeting dozens of very smart people, as you can see in the bottom, we saw so many investors, build great relationships, continued conversations with many of them. But what I do remember is looking at them and thinking, wow, if they only knew that a few months ago I couldn't spell laparoscopy, I can't even believe how they're investing their money on us right now. So those are some of my personal memories of the hard work that really was essential in order to get to that success. But what I wanted to share a little bit today is how did we really get there from the beginning to where we landed, and some of the steps that we took on this journey. When we first started, it was hard not to think of all the reasons why this would be difficult. I saw challenges coming my way. I decided to approach it like, it's another sport event. It's a tennis match for me. It's something that I can take, something that I'm very familiar with in terms of competition and handling nerves and all that, and transform that into something really positive and making the opportunities really shine behind the barriers. So I knew that. I knew that I needed to understand myself and expose my fears in order to improve it. So I did, and I was honest, and I surrounded myself with people who could help me transform that challenge into a mindset. So a few examples. I was always very nervous for the presentations, but I have a big personality, a lot of charisma, so I would canalize that energy and really bring it to the stage and have that presence and smile and interact and move around and really not show the nerves that all of the time during the 30 minutes, an hour I was feeling. Tough to accept failure. For me as an athlete, it was always difficult to just accept the way it was. If I had something that I could do better, I would always be thinking about that. But at some point, we put so much work that it was a matter of thinking about accepting the best that you could do. If we put everything that we had in there, we brought our best to the table, we would just take the learnings and move forward. I was worried about language. I was worried about maybe not understanding the way that a question was framed, or how could I tell them and communicate in the best way what I was thinking. But I decided to use that to my strength. It was, again, my personality. I wouldn't hide the fact that English wasn't my first language, and they would buy into that. They would find a connection. They would see something in there that they were intrigued by as well. I wasn't familiar at times with some of the topics of discussion, some of the things that were very into the technical terms, into the medical field. But what would I do? I would consult with people who did understand those very well, even if it's in marketing or in finance, and find the right analogies, find the language that I could take that same example and transform that into something that I am actually familiar with. And that way I could absorb so much more and be that sponge through the process. Also, team challenges. Everybody's different. We would come together to go through the pitching process and to understand how we could leverage each other. And it wasn't easy. There were some stressful days, and we went through all the ups and downs together, but we decided to focus on our strengths. What did we do best as individuals and as a team, and really capitalize on that? And of course, as you just noticed a few minutes ago, unpredictable stuff happens. And what are you going to do about it? So you just got to keep going. You have to have answers and options and scenario planning ahead of time, and just keep going. Pivoting is going to be the word in life of someone who's going to go through pitching. And then I'm going to go back to actually in terms of pivoting and keep going. If you think through the challenges and mindset, I want y'all to go to the chat right now and give an example of when it comes to pitching or selling an idea or whatever it is that you're trying to put forward to a different audience. What is your one biggest fear, and what is the mindset that you would put to address that? Just like I gave a few examples, it's your turn now. I want to see some of the things that you have to share. Let's see, getting some of the tumbling over my words. I do that all the time. Matter of fact, I've done that a few times already since we started. Yep, not knowing what to say. Imagine sometimes that happens quite a bit when you rely on notes and something happens and all of a sudden then you don't have your notes. Where do you go from there? Not agreeing with what you have to say, very common. Yeah, the nerves again, the nerves are very popular. It's still something that I go through. It's not because we won so many competitions and did so well that all of that disappeared. Now I had to learn how to manage that. I had to learn how sometimes not even hide it, but to transform those nerves into passion, into excitement, into something that they would jump in with me. Yeah, the not saying what they want to hear is an interesting one, because when you really research your audience and you know who you're about to go talk to, you do want to say a lot of the things that they are looking for. You want to hit the right points and the questions that they already have. So you want to cover those ahead of time. But yeah, sometimes you have to defend your idea, your business. You have to show them that you've done the work. You've done way more than they have done, to know that that's going to work. And I think it's important at times to recognize when it's time to defend. Yeah, no, those are all great examples, and keep those in mind. And as we move forward and you think through some more things that scare you as you go through pitching and telling a story, think about that mindset. Think about how you can use that in your favor. All right, we'll go into before the story. So once you get to really understand yourself, it's time to develop that narrative, right? So you need to understand what you want your audience to know or do. You need to understand what your audience wants to know or do. And the middle ground is really your sweet spot. You want to be in that intersection. You need to understand the mutual value proposition for your audience. You need to solve for that pain point or show that they will be better off because they took the time to listen to you. So take the time to think about them and be aware of the conversations that they are involved in. And now you can start mapping what you actually have. It doesn't matter if you have a fully shaped idea yet. Sketching what you have will allow you to see what you're missing and what it takes for you to fill those gaps. And also you have to start with the core, and from there you can expand on details and what you know that you need to convey. You're going to have different opportunities and different time frames in which you can convey the idea. So it's important for you to break what's core, what's essential, and what else can I expand on if I am given the time. And remember that that opener and finisher are the parts that will resonate the most with people. So here's a famous quote to ground you before you start thinking through your own narrative. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you just told them. And that's very true. It's a very old concept that couldn't be newer. It's so relevant, it's so fresh, and I still use it in so many things that I do in my routine. So let's see over here. Yeah, so how does this actually work when you're putting your narrative together? First, you have that opener. You have to build that strong start that's so crucial. You can win or lose the audience in a matter of seconds in the first interaction that you have. So however you decide to start, you must show up, you make sure that people feel your presence, that show them that you're there to play. And then you want to grab their attention. What are you going to do? Are you going to break the ice? Are you going to bring your personality in? Is it going to be an analogy? Is it going to be a metaphor? Even with a complex idea, you need to find a way to make them feel intrigued and want to know more. And this is where you tell them what you will tell them. There is a problem or a challenge, and you're there to fix it, to provide direction, to take them on a journey. They need to believe that you're the one to take on this journey, and the value proposition needs to shine at that spot as well. So your chance to make the case for yourself and the case for your business is really around that middle area. And you think through, no matter how amazing you are and how you were born to do this, your points really need to resonate with the audience. So find the connections, find their emotions, give them purpose. And of course, bring any relevant details to the table, such as key data, the team expertise, your unfair advantages, even a risk reward analysis if you do have the time, just showing that you are already taking those necessary steps to mitigate any challenges. And then, of course, the finisher. Now you want to reiterate and tell them what you just told them. And at this point, you want them to believe in you and be clear on why you're telling them that you're looking for something. And they need to know that. They need to know what your ask is. And you could give them more about the size of the investment opportunity, the market opportunity, what is in it for them? Like, why would they benefit from taking on this journey with you? It could be a follow-up conversation to the network. It could be just exchanging information, exchanging expertise. Somehow you got to find a way to invite them in and make it easier for them to find you afterwards as well. I know that in a virtual world, we have follow-up notes and thank yous ready. You can just send a quick email, connect with them on social media. So make sure that social profiles are also up to date and they communicate the same message of what you're looking for, who you are, and bringing that strong character to life in the different platforms that they can find you. And remember that every conversation you have is an opportunity to pitch. You can be pitching an idea or you can just be pitching yourself. And a lot of times people are buying into the person and the team and not as much into the idea. So here's a little bit of an exercise that we're going to do, and I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite books. Hopefully, many of you have seen this before, but now that you have an idea of what you could be doing, where you could go with your idea, and how to start mapping your story and the pitch, you can add some what we call stickness to it. This is one of my favorite books. It's called Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. It gives you great insight on why some ideas last a lifetime and others just can't. And it's about making them sticky, making people remember that no matter what, whatever you tell them is just gonna continue to last and survive through time and make an impact and resonate. And those different letters, they all give you some advice on how to achieve that goal. They came up with this success model that can be applied in a ton of situations: a job interview, a business pitch, a reorg. I'll give you a little bit of an insight of what that actually looks like. All right, so we're gonna start with simple. So make the story and your idea, your pitch simple. It's a must. There's no time for acronyms. There is no time for slangs, for tech terms. You need to prioritize. You need to know what's going to resonate with the audience. For example, in here, and it's going to be a little small for some of you, but I'll give you some examples. Disney versus Subway in this example. In here, at Disneyland, the employees are called cast members, and this gives them the kind of energy they need to know how they are a part of the bigger idea. They know how to act and to play their part. And at Subway, they call it in here that they're called the sandwich artists when they are asked to do exactly the same thing over and over again, and they have not a lot of room to be creative. So that's a way that you can make it simple, useful analogies. Now, unexpected. Get their attention. You got to be provocative. You need to make them curious. You need to make them want to know more. For example, this unexpected in here with the bananas. The power of a nuclear bomb can be measured in bananas. So find that kind of language that's going to make you intrigued, and they're just going to want to know more with something that's completely out of the box that they did not expect to hear from you, but now you got them hooked. They're going to be paying attention to you. Make it concrete. Painting a mental picture makes it easier for them to visualize your idea and for them to see what you're trying to make them see. For example, with popcorn, a lot of people won't really pay attention when you say, yeah, popcorn has like 20 grams of fat. Yeah, like whatever, I think it's a lot. But if you really find a way to paint that picture, and now you know that with eggs dinner, Big Mac, fries, steak dinner, all of that, you're gonna get the same amount of fat. And now you're hit and you're worried and you're trying to provoke the audience with those kind of feelings. Credible, that can come from an outside thought leader or from within through some vivid details or statistics. You're just there to show that your idea already works. And in here, we have a little example of testable credibility that, oh, you're going to tell me that burger is bigger than your head? Yeah, I'm more than telling you, I'm going to show it to you. And making it credible for us was bringing the prototype to the table. And we used it and we showed the investors and the judges that it actually worked. It wasn't just an idea. We showed them that what we already had in place was working and we were going to move forward with it. Making it emotional. Speak to the audience. You need to find what will create a strong connection with your audience, something that will hit their hearts. For example, in here, you could tell them that, like, yeah, overfishing could be really bad. Or you could tell them that overfishing in the Pacific, it's going to lead to the end of sushi as we know it. And little things like that can really make people think again and decide to take a different take on your own story. Finally, stories, the narrative, the beginning, the middle, the end. You want a memorable storyline that will let people experience that with you. And it's not just going to be like, okay, let me put this little pieces together and I'll get to the end and hopefully that works for them. No, you got to tell that story over and over again with different audiences, see what works, what didn't, make small changes, really find what connects with them. These are some of the examples that I wanted to show to you all today. And now I think it would be a fun exercise for you to think through some of those examples under these categories. Think about your own idea, an idea that you have right now, a business that you own. Think about yourself as a candidate to your dream company, or think about your unfair advantage. What makes you you? What makes you the one meant to do something? And honestly, the more letters that you use, the better your chances to be remembered and to be that person that's really going to be sticky to the audience. But for today's purpose, we're just going to focus on one letter. So I'll give you some minutes just to think through your business, your idea, yourself. What can you do about that information to make it sticky? Think through these examples. Use the pictures as references. Tell me a story. You're trying to catch my attention right now. If you would like to do a follow-up with me and you want to know more, and I'm reading throughout these different examples in the chat, there are some specific things in here that I'm really, really going to remember if you use this technique right. So take a chance on that now. I'll give you a few minutes. I want to see some interesting out-of-the-box ways to convey an idea, your business, or even yourself as a person, as a professional. All right, play. All right, I see some stuff coming into the private. If you want to go ahead and click the everyone so we could all look at your wonderful stories, go ahead. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to read that one. Bring some emotion to the table.
I don't know if that's the right way to bring emotion to the table. So I'm applying for a grant. So my audience here is the Economic Development Administration of the US government, and it's a pediatric innovation grant. So it is a stark statistic. For every dollar spent on America's healthcare system, less than 1/100th of a cent is spent on new innovations. And in pediatrics, which is really neglected in innovation, it's 1/1000th of a cent.
No, wow.
I haven't
Healthcare.
put that
Yeah,
in the
look.
grant, but I'm trying to make an economic development argument to the economic development people.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, I'll give you an example of my career as well. When I was in college, I applied for a Nike internship, which I ended up getting it. But when I tell that story, what really makes it special for me is that there were 23,000 applicants and only under 200 of us got in. And if you put it that perspective, it's the one, just over the 1% in there that was accepted. And within those 200, we had to go through evaluation processes. We got feedback from our managers, our partners within Nike. And with that, we got ranked again in a way, and then you would be a part of the top 1% of your class, of the top 1%. And that reminds me of that. And when you say like, yeah, I did a great internship, but no, actually you were in the top 1% of the top 1% of 23,000 people. That brings a whole other different scale to your worth and your work and what you accomplished in there. So those things like that, finding the right way to communicate a story is really, really important. Right. This is a hard exercise, and it's something that you really need to look into. What are all the things that speak to you? What are all the things that speak to your audience? What are the different topics that are really popular in a community, or what are the big social conversations that are happening? All of those things can be taken into consideration when you're trying to give an idea or tell a story that's really going to resonate with people. So you got to be used to having those conversations outside of your bubble as well. You have to put yourself out there. And it doesn't matter if I'm great at talking sports or great at talking marketing or public relations or anything like that. If I have to communicate something in the healthcare business, like I did through Lepovations, I had to go after information. I had to put myself in their shoes. I had to spend time with the surgeons. I walked around the hospital with the nurses and the hospital managers, people that I would never imagine interacting with, but I wanted to feel what they were feeling. And with that, we were able to capture a lot of their fears, their concerns, what they wanted to do. And when we started building our pitch, it wasn't about telling everybody else in the world that, hey, there is a problem in there. No, we brought the problem to the table. We made the audience feel what we felt when we were in their shoes. We brought a video that showed a little bit of the surgery, which was kind of scary and very uncomfortable to watch, but people felt it and they wanted to help fix it with us. And that was a big part of our success. And it was really putting ourselves in their shoes and understanding what we needed to communicate in there. So we'll keep going. We'll share this with y'all after so you can have a reference point and how to make your ideas and your own story more sticky as well. All right, and speaking of making it sticky, I do have an example of a good friend of mine and my Forever Lepovations team member, team partner, Jared. And one thing that I want to show in here is his pitch for the elevator pitch. Let's see if the volume and all works as well.
Lepovations is a medical device company focused on creating a platform of innovative products that improve minimally invasive surgery. Our first product, AbGrab, solves the worst part of the procedure. At the start of the surgery, the surgeon basically uses meat hooks to invasively lift the abdominal wall. There's no room in surgery for Halloween props, so Lapivations is going to change that. My name is Jared Greer. I'm an entrepreneur who's been in medical sales for 15 years. My co-founder is an experienced surgeon who's completed over 4,000 of these surgeries. AbGrab is a non-invasive alternative to the meat hooks. We can make it for $5 and sell it for 50, and the annual market is 750 million. Please join us as we drop the hook. Thank you.
So yeah, this is one of my favorite elevator pitches ever. It was very well rehearsed, of course, and it did hit all of the different points that we wanted to convey to the investors and things that we knew that they were important to them. But we also wanted to bring a little bit of a stickiness to it. We wanted them to remember us. We wanted them to remember us. We wanted them to when they were in the room talking to all the hundreds of different applicants and they were talking about how great the elevator pitches were, they would mention the meat hooks. We would be walking around and they're like, oh, those are the meat hooks people, you know, and they remembered, they wanted to have a conversation, they followed up, and we had really great relationships built from that experience. So a little bit of an example of how to use visual aids. That's what I wanted to get into. In here, visual aids should not be distracting from the main idea and what you're trying to convey. It could be props, it could be a presentation, it could be the prototypes, it could be infographics, maps. Make sure that what you're trying to convey is not distracting and just enhances that experience for your audience. And every audience is different, by the way. For example, when you're using a PowerPoint, some may read the slides, some may listen to it, some are just looking at their phones and they are not really sure what's going on and they want the title of the presentation to remind them where they are. You have to understand and be mindful of that from the get-go. Make sure that your materials will connect with this diverse audience. You also need to bring the concepts to life. You need to illustrate videos, photos, anything that can help explain something very difficult and make people retain that information. That helps, just like we did with bringing the laparoscopic procedure video to the table when a lot of people didn't even know what laparoscopic procedures looked like. Then consistency, especially with decks, your color palette, the font sizes, the imagery, the page numbers. Details are very important to ensure that you have a good story flow with no hiccups. And also focus. Sometimes it helps to walk through every step with the audience. I had a ton of information to share in here, so I decided to do click by clicks. You know, I decided to take you with me through this storytelling. And now that the story and the narrative is set, you have to be able to develop a variety of those stories. We had pitches with 10 seconds, we had 30 seconds, we had a minute, 5 minutes, 10, 15, 30. We did all of them, and we needed to be ready to adapt to all the opportunities that were presented. So have that core idea down, go back to that mapping exercise and understand when it's time to bring more details forward. Next, we have practice. You have your narrative, you have your story, you have the visuals that are going to help you with that. Everything is ready to go. Your deck is a rock star deck. The design is amazing, but that doesn't really matter if you just don't show up when it's time to perform. So practice is different than actually just being up there performing. I can't emphasize how important practice is. It just needs to be about practice a ton. However you like to do it or feel comfortable with the material, do it. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own ways to do things. For me, I loved using my writing as a tool. I wrote my talking points. I read them out loud over and over again, probably hundreds and hundreds of times. In the shower, in the car, I would record myself and put it as like background noise as I did other stuff throughout the day. I made adjustments. I then started practicing without my notes. I adjusted my tone. I adjusted the way that I was speaking and making the words clear. There were a lot of words that were hard for me to say in a different language. So I just owned it, and I found the tricks that were helpful for me. And you can add a little bit of I want to say hints, to the deck to give you the cues and what you can look for. For example, in the deck, I had words in specific places where I knew that was my cue to say something else, or to convey an emotion, or to move from point A to point B, and to use my hands. All of that was in the deck. People didn't know it, but it was very clear for me. And I also looked for audience members that I could find a connection with them. I would look at them and feel empowered. They were there with me. The way that they were moving, just the way that they were staring at the content and going back to me interested, I kind of bounced back with the energy level. And I owned that character the entire time. Through the thick and thin, I was showing up to play and using those strengths. Rhythm is very important here, and it's not just yours, it's your team's as well. Virtually or in person, you got to time yourselves. You got to pay attention. You got to kind of see how each other is doing in that particular day in terms of their energy. You have to pay attention to your position, your presence, your posture. You got to practice transitions. Are we going to be the team that says, thank you, X, here is why, all of the time? Or are we going to find that smooth transition that it just looks like, it doesn't matter who's presenting, you know what's going on, and you can clearly see that they trust each other. And also, you gotta do a lot of rehearsals with real judges as well, and mentors, people who can make you feel uncomfortable, people who you see as, they're so smart, and it makes me nervous to be in front of them. You gotta practice against and with your competition. They're gonna make you better. And the goal is to really make everybody better. What I really love about the entrepreneurship community, especially in Northwest Arkansas, is that everybody is there to help you. I was never scared of sharing an idea. I was never scared of sharing an experience and something that, could be stolen and could make them do better than us. But that wasn't the point. The point is that we helped each other so much that we all ended up succeeding really great at the end. And now we go into the preparation. Now you know exactly what you're doing, but hey, there's that crucial step of thinking through all the different scenarios that it would take for you to improvise, to have backup plans. Make sure all the equipment is good to go. Your laptop is updated. You have all the cables, the potential adapters, the HDMI cords. You're testing the links. As you can see, again, from today, you should never just trust completely on technology. Get to the location early. If it's a physical location, test the setup, get familiar with the room, the building, find your relaxation spot. When you need to find that clear space just to breathe a little bit, or tell your own pitch to yourself a few times before you walk into the stage. Everything like that can be managed if you are familiar with the place. And also have a routine. It's like a pre-match, a pre-pitch routine, and stick to it. Create personal triggers that will make you feel confident. I remember having a routine before every single practice, every single performance as well. And I would even tell my pitch to some of my mentors and just repeat it until I felt like I was warmed up, like physically warmed up to go in there and perform. And then we have performance. Crucial moment, of course, you've done all of the work. Now just go get them, trust the practice and the pre-work. Trust everything that you've done thus far. Be present and be ready to improvise as well, because stuff is going to continue to happen. No matter how much work and how much preparation goes into it, stuff out of your control is going to happen, and you have to figure out how to go with the flow and make the best of that opportunity. You got to be ready to go to that one appendix slide that, you never thought that they would ask that question, but now they did, and you're ready. You have that information in the back, but you're not going to scroll through the entire deck. If you have a team, have that cheat sheet. Find a way to get familiar with every single slide in your deck, and you can show them exactly what they need without distracting them through the rest of the information as well. Be ready to take criticism and the harsh comments, you know, kill them with kindness. No matter what they tell you, you're always there being kind, but also being very, very smart. Everything that you say is still showing people that they can trust you and that you will do the work and be that team player. And keep up with the time too. If you're approaching the end of a Q&A, do what you can to end in a positive note. It's like that analogy of sports again. For me, I can never leave practice hitting a bad ball. I couldn't hit a ball in the net or a ball outside and just walk away. I needed to get it right. And that's what you're trying to do, telling a story in your pitch as well. If you're put in a spot that maybe it's more of a negative tone, or you didn't present something, you didn't cover something, hey, find a way to word that in a way that's very positive and promising, and hey, I'm on it. And as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go after what we need to do to be better. So very important aspects of the entire performance. And after the pitch is definitely crucial as the process begins again. You want to write down the questions. People are going to ask you a ton of different things. And sometimes they ask because they didn't really see it in the deck, or it didn't, they didn't absorb that information as well. Sometimes you really missed it. You didn't cover that and they were expecting you to. They were more interested in something else that you didn't even think that it would be possible. Write them down and think through the ways that you could implement them in your story ahead of time for your next idea. Listen and take feedback. So important. Everything is valuable. Sometimes some feedback is going to be more valuable than other, but they all have a positive impact into how you can have a different outlook into your presentation. There is a reason why we have 400 different versions of a PowerPoint, because we had 400 different versions of audiences and understanding what worked for them. And we wanted them to connect with us. We wanted the chances of establishing that connection to be higher the next time. Go after the follow-ups. You do have your thank yous, you know, ready to send to some of the people that were kind enough to spend time with you and to listen to you. Be ready to thank them. Be ready to understand how they could be a part of this process. If they have advice to give you, always keep those people in mind and show up, go after them, you know, make them know that you want it. Ask for recordings. A lot of times you're going to have the opportunity to be recorded, be it a video or a virtual video or just an audio. It's important for you to listen through it, see how you actually performed. We have a different idea of how we do things than people seen from the outside do. And I think it's very important for you to have both angles in mind as you prepare yourself. Self-awareness is crucial. Regroup, analyze, learn, get together with your most trusted advisors, mentors, team members, analyze everything that just happened, learn from it, and be ready to go to the next step, you know. But it is a harsh process. If you want to get things right, you're going to spend a lot of energy, some early mornings, some late nights, sometimes you're going to be losing sleep over something that you know you could have done better. But be kind to yourself. You did a lot. This is a lot, and getting things right takes a lot from you. Be kind to yourself. Take the time to process. Take time to relax. Take time to transition into a new phase. Readjust your next steps. Every time that you go through this pitching experience, your next steps are going to look different. They're never the same, because your feedback and the experience is going to take you to a different direction. So keep in mind that a next step might be a very much of a new step for you. And then say your new North Star. What are you going after now? You have done so much work to accomplish that one goal, but what's next for you? Did you end up achieving everything that you wanted? Is there a next level of something that you want to accomplish? What is it about that feeling of, okay, this is over. What is next? What's the next best thing that's going to keep you motivated and hungry for a better outcome and a different result? And then again, this is a little bit of a going back to show them and tell them what you just told them. It's again that process of, hey, you got to be true to yourself. You got to understand who you are before you even embark into this journey. Then you find your narrative. make that sticky, illustrate everything that you can to make things easier to communicate, practice, practice, practice a ton, prepare, perform, take all the feedback that you can, and then be ready to readjust. You know, I never thought that a few years later I would be in this position. It took a lot of hard work, a lot of persistence, a lot of resilience, self-grace, belief, a ton of self-awareness to accomplish what we did with Lapovations. And even for me to get into where I am professionally today, like I said, you can be pitching an idea, you can be into a new business, you can be releasing a book, trying to share something about your favorite movie, your own story in an interview, trying to get the job of your dreams. Whatever it is, make sure that you address the entire journey, because every step of this journey matters, and it's going to take you to the next best thing, which is really chasing the new best you can do. We always, in sports, it would help process a loss or not winning a championship if you just put everything you had out there, every ounce, you know, of your effort and your energy and your intention. And if you do that, you're going to end up being very, very satisfied with what you just accomplished, regardless of the result and regardless of how the audience took that pitch or that story. But you want to be chasing the next, what's best, you know, chasing your new version of what's the best that I can do. And those things keep me inspired. People like the great mentors in this call and the great competitors that I had the chance to compete against, Harvard, Columbia, you know, like MIT. We competed against all of the best schools in the country, schools from all over the world. And they were the people who inspired me the most to keep chasing that and to keep chasing the best version of myself, and never being comfortable with what I just did, but taking time to recognize the work and the journey, be very, very proud of it, and dream a little higher, you know, go a little bigger the next time. And that's what I appreciate about the pitching journey. And that's what makes me excited to a next pitch, no matter if I'm going to have to stumble all over my English words again. So with that, I'm going to wrap up just sharing a quick thank you and shout out to the incredible people that surrounded me through this process. What I share with you today, the step-by-step, it was something that was built not just by me, but by all the incredible people that supported me through this process and supported me through every single time I got on stage and had to overcome fears and make sure that everybody knew that I was there to play and I was there to win. And find who those people are for you. A lot of them could be on this call. It could be your friends, your competitors. It could be people that you would never imagine to meet in the first place. But there's something special about the relationships that you build as you put yourself out there, no matter how scary that may be. Those are the people who tend to stick around for a lifetime as you build your own narrative. So thank you so much. And with that, we can open for a few questions.
I know you guys have questions. Teresa's going to get the book. Highly recommended.
Nice. Great. Yeah, I see here the point from Sarah saying, I do not have a product or a company to pitch, but this information is going to help with thesis defense. Yeah, that was a big thing. I had to go through one myself, and I borrowed a lot of this because the same concept applies, and making it sticky into the before the defense or the during, the after, the feedback rounds, the people that you get involved. There's just so much that you can take from that. So I'm glad to see that this is useful on that end as well. Let's see, there's a question in here. Did you ever have a teammate miss the mark in their portion of the presentation? How did you respond? And what advice would you give for when that happens in a pitch? Yes, that happened before. It happened to me and with me. I've been in both sides of the spectrum. And you know, earlier in the process when we were learning a lot about what it meant to do what we were trying to do and what we could accomplish, a lot of the nerves came in. Some stuff actually happened, emergency situations. We had to handle all of that. But the important thing for us was to really understand the entire business. It wasn't like someone was responsible for marketing, someone was responsible for finance, someone was responsible for the product showcase. We knew everything about each other. We've all had the business plan memorized. If there was a case that someone got sick and they couldn't get on a plane to travel to another country to do the pitch, guess what? We were going to show up. We were going to do that. We were going to cover each other's parts. It could be 5 minutes before the presentation, something really bad happened. They're not going to be able to show up. We're there for each other. Or if in the middle of the presentation something happens, or even the slides crash, we had a rehearsal with important mentors that our stuff stopped working, but we didn't have enough time. They had a deadline. They had a time that they needed to cut and leave. So we just kept talking with them. We brought those visuals to them through words. So as I said at the beginning, you just have to keep going. Whatever it is, get very familiar with the entire material. Use it as, you know, it's your everyday. It's part of who you are almost. And that way it's going to be much easier to convey those ideas if something like that happens. Let's see if we have any other questions. Sarah, Stacy, do you see anything?
There's one more that just popped in. Do you see it from Sarah?
Yes. Has there ever been a time when improving went wrong for you or a teammate? If yes, how did you all recover?
Oh, improv, I think.
Improv. Oh, there you go. Yes, it is a hard task. It's not like we were all geniuses of, you know, coming up with something so quickly that it's going to sound natural and people are going to be like, yeah, they know exactly what they're doing. Nothing wrong happened. That's just the way it's supposed to be. No, in fact, our first presentation, I remember we were in Canada and our slides just stopped working. And it was our first time presenting to investors. And obviously we were concerned the clicker was not clicking and we could go back to the computer. But because we went to the computer, we switched positions and then we kind of got lost in our marks to pass the clicker in transition. And we walked in front of the slide, a mess, you know, but thankfully the investors and the judges, they saw that as they had technical difficulties, but they could definitely see that it threw us off. And at the end of it, we made sure to go talk to those people. After the presentation was over, we just conveyed to them how incredibly familiar we were with what we were doing. Unfortunately, we were not able to convey at that point, but we were able to set up a follow-up conversation to give a little bit more detail in the part that we got a little lost. And they ended up asking questions about that at the end, that even though we answered that, we couldn't go to the detail that we had planned at the presentation. So figuring out how to pivot really, and even when improvising doesn't really work, you gotta be honest about it, own it, and just be, again, kind to yourself and the best version of yourself and go to the best next thing. For us, it was talking directly to people and scheduling a follow-up so we can clarify all the things that they could have missed. Let's see, anything else? I don't see any other questions in. Customer, let's see, working on a lot of customer discovery right now and talking to potential end users and decision makers to really understand their pain points. Great that this helps. It helped us a ton in recognizing pain points and what audiences care for. We had audiences that they didn't even care about the presentation or the products. They really wanted to invest in a team of people that could push them and their partners to a new, an innovative process of partnership. And it was a very interesting interaction because we were there to sell an idea and they just wanted to get to know us as professionals. And if we were able to debate, if we were able to put our opinions forward and how we interacted, and they used that experience to teach their people on how to have those kind of conversations. So there's always a different intention behind the audience. So I'm glad that this helps with customer discovery, because for us, it was really, really helpful to understand what the audience cared for, but also, is there really a problem? Some people like to tell us that we were a A+ team with a B product. And yeah, our product was pretty simple. It had a lot of different iterations for us to get to the best products that could be. But for people, it just looked so simple. And we spent an entire pitch telling them how complex that actually was. So because of that, we had to really invest on the team during the presentation as well, and to show them like, hey, this looks simple, but there are years and years and years of experience and work and surgeries and, you know, ups and downs behind of this. We promise you it's not simple. So a lot of times people bought into our team and then they got to know our product.
Thank you so much, Flavia. This is, to me, it was really inspiring. Just it makes me feel like I have a lot more purpose even when I give class presentations. So thank you so much.
Of course.
And everyone who's still on, I put a link for a survey about the workshop in the chat. If you all would just take a minute to fill that out, it is pretty quick. So we really appreciate your feedback.
Thanks, Natalie. And thank you, Flavia. This was awesome.
Yep.
And thanks to everybody for being here. See you next time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Good seeing everyone.